This is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's episode of the Passion to Profits podcast. Now, in today's podcast episode, we are going to talk about burnout, something I don't want happening to you. I don't want you reaching a point where you're mentally and physically drained and you start hating your passion business. So in this podcast episode, I'm going to give you tips, tricks, and I'm going to give you telltale signs to look out for to make sure you don't reach burnout. So the most obvious probably signs of burnout are that mental and physical exhaustion, where you're just giving it everything and you just don't have anything left. And you will find that when you reach that point, you will probably hate your business, you'll dread it, you don't want anything to do with it, and you'll probably drop out. So before you do get to that point, what are the telltale signs that you are actually heading for this burnout? Well, there are telltale signs. You're probably going to find that you're going to be irritable. You mightn't be sleeping so well, you might be cranky, you might be finding that your motivation is just going through the floor, and you might find that maybe you hate doing what you're doing. So those are kind of telltale signs that you are heading for burnout, and what you need to do is you need to wind down. You need to start putting some distance between you and your passion business. Now that is something I think a lot of us sometimes suffer from, is that we don't put any boundaries between us and our business. We see us as a business and our business as us, and there's no kind of boundary between the two. What you need to do is you need to separate yourself from your passion business. You need to have opening times and closing times. You know, it's very easy when we're at home. When you've got an iPhone, an iPad, a tablet, your laptop, you can spend all day online. You can be on Facebook, you can be on social media, you can be on platforms, you can be on different things 24/7. And if you are like that, you need to dial it back. You need to set boundaries. You know, if you worked in a 9-to-5 job, when the alarm went or when the bell went or when the whistle went, 5 o'clock, you would have left the premises and you wouldn't have thought about your job until 9 o'clock the next morning. And that is what you need to do with your passion business. It needs to have opening times and closing times. And when you reach that closing time in the day, regardless though you might have a great idea for a Facebook post, or you want to come up with some witty comment to something you've seen on Twitter, or you want to listen to a podcast, or you want to do something, you need to close the laptop. You need to put the devices away, and you need to think to yourself, well, I need to come back to this tomorrow because I need some me time. Now, when you are setting your boundaries, when you do reach your closing time, you need to bring yourself back into the real world. Again, it's very easy just to lose yourself in the online world and think, well, that's the real world. But really, that's not the real world. You've got family, you've got friends, you've got hobbies, you've got pastimes, you've got things that you should be taking care of in the real world. And if you don't have enough of those things, maybe now is the time to start putting those in so that you give your brain time to decompress, time to think about different things, and just basically to enjoy your life. The last thing you want to do is build a passion business where you're on it 24/7 and you've got no life. What we're doing is we're trying to build a business that is going to take us to the life that we want. We don't want us taking us to places we don't want to go to. So when it comes to burnout, you need to have a look at your workload as well too. Sometimes we kind of get overwhelmed, where we say to ourselves, well, today I'm going to make a video, then I'm going to do a podcast, then I'm going to do a blog post, then I'm going to do a Facebook post, and you're just adding more and more work onto yourself. And you find that you might be able to do it for a couple of days, but over time, in the long haul, it's just going to be burnout. Burnout is going to happen. You're just going to get exhausted. So what you need to do is you need to dial it back, and you need to ask yourself, what can I sustainably do? What can I do every day? If I can only do one video every day and be guaranteed to do a video every day, well, that is what I'm going to do. Now, you may find over time, as you get better at making videos and things become easier, you might find that maybe you've got more time where you can add something else to it. But what you need to do is you need to add those little bits on gently along the way. Don't load everything straight away because it's going to lead to overwhelm and you're going to give up. And when you think about it, if you're going to be in this for the long haul, you are not going to retire in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You're probably not going to retire in the next 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 5 years. So you need to look at it that way. You need to look at it as a long journey where you are going to do something consistently and be here daily, if you can do that. But just do the minimum amount of work that you can do without overwhelming yourself. Now, when it comes to burnout, I think as well too, when it comes to the work that we get burnt out on, it's because we focus too much on perfection. We want to make the right videos. We want to create the perfect blog post. We want to make the perfect podcast episodes. And because we want them perfect, we do the work over and over and over again. And we put far too much effort into the work that we do, which if it went on social media would only be seen for half a day, which could be a podcast episode that might never be listened to, that might create a video for a platform that might only get 100 views. And when you look at your content in that way, Do you really think that all that extra work is worth it? No. What you need to do is you need to think of your work and get it to a level of being good enough. Being good enough to your audience, being good enough for yourself, that it's sustainable, and then just walk away from it. Just let it go off on its little journey. If it does well, it does well. If it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. But you've done it to the best of your ability. Forget the perfection bit. All that little bit of extra work that you're probably going to put in to getting something perfect is probably not going to be worth your time. You're probably going to find that a post that is good enough is probably going to get you to maybe 70 or 80% of the way there. So is it really worth it, doing all the rewrites, doing all the re-recordings, doing the videos over and over again? No, it's not. And if you are maybe someone who has got a problem with perfection, you need to have a look at that. You need to realize that even though you might think the work is perfect, in 6 months from now, when you go back to your videos and your blog posts and your content, you're going to see that it was far from perfect. So forget the idea of perfection. Get it to a good enough level and then get it out there. Now, as I said here a couple of times in this episode, you need to take care of yourself because you're going to be on a long journey. Now, you're not going to retire in the next 6 months and a year, as I said. So you need to see this as a long-term thing. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to think yourself more of the tortoise than the hare. Now, you probably know the story about the hare and the tortoise, but I see a lot of people who are like hares, who come online here and just do a load of work and then they burn out. Whereas the tortoise just keeps plodding along because the tortoise knows that eventually they're going to get to the finish line, but it's just going to get there one step at a time. So instead of maybe just sprinting and racing and tiring yourself out right now, just think of the long haul. What can you do consistently? And just take it one step at a time. And when it comes to burnout as well too, you need to say no. You need to say no to sometimes opportunities. Sometimes we feel that if we say no to something, it means that we're going to miss out on something. But sometimes actually saying more no's actually leads us to better yeses. You've got so many opportunities on the internet. Right now you could be podcasting, you could be blogging, you could be in Facebook, you could have an e-commerce store, you could be creating digital products, you could be in all different things. And I think sometimes we have so many opportunities open to us, we kind of want to try everything. We want to do it all. And then when we try and do it all, we just get burned out. So dialing it back maybe and saying no to a lot of those opportunities will actually be better for you in the long run in that you'll put better work in. If you think about it, if you're trying to juggle maybe a blog and a podcast and maybe a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, do you really think you're giving everybody your best content? Do you really think that you're doing the best work you can? So to probably do the best work you can would be saying no to maybe two or three of those things so that you're kind of limiting yourself. But by doing that, that opportunity is probably going to give you more yeses in the future. We think by saying no to all those things are going to, lead us to having more no's or missing out on opportunities. But sometimes saying no right now can lead you to better opportunities because you're scaling back and you're actually doing the things to your best ability, and rather than kind of stretching yourself and doing it too thin. Again, too, when it comes to your work, you need to think about maybe delegating and automating. If you've got the money, maybe you can hire some people on Fiverr to do some of the work that you don't like doing so that somebody else will take care of that for you and take that off your workload. Or maybe so you could maybe get some AI tools, again, that can automate and take some of that work off you. Now, if you do automate or if you do delegate, don't use that extra space that you've saved to load more work on yourself. Because I think sometimes when we automate everything, we feel, well, because I don't do that task anymore, it means I need to take on these two other tasks in the free time that I have. Sometimes we feel that if we're busy, well, then that means we're going somewhere. But sometimes we can be a busy fool taking loads of actions and not getting anywhere. So be aware of that. If you are delegating or if you are automating stuff, do make sure if you do take any more work on, that it's going in the right direction, that it's moving the needle in the right direction, that you're not being a busy fool. And again, if you do find that you are heading towards burnout, maybe sometimes reframing your mind in thinking, well, why am I doing this? Why am I making all these videos? Why am I writing these blog posts? Why am I even bothering having a podcast? Why am I doing it? And you might find sometimes that, as we get so busy, we kind of lose track of our why, of what actually started our journey. And by actually going back to our why, we'll realize and say to ourselves, well, I don't think a podcast is what I was looking to do, or I don't think I wanted to be on Facebook, or I didn't want to have an e-commerce store. This was my place where I wanted to start from. So sometimes going back to our why makes us kind of realize that, you know something, we've headed off on the wrong path. We've just been a busy fool doing things that had no relevance to what we really wanted to do. And when we go back to our why, we can actually plot out a better path from that point. So if you do find that maybe you are heading towards burnout, just ask yourself, am I going in the right direction? Is this what I wanted to do? Is this where I want to go in the future? Do I want to be burnt out like this in the future? Or do I want to have something that's sustainable, something that I can do every day? Because if you don't, stop the path that you're on right now, you can probably be guaranteed that wherever you're heading is going to bring you to a place that you don't want to be to. And then finally, celebrate your wins. Sometimes when we get overwhelmed and kind of burnt out, it's because we feel that we need to do more and more and more and more. And it's almost like we're like this shark that is just swimming forward all the time, never looking back over our shoulder and never just stopping and pausing for a moment and celebrating what we've done. Sometimes we lose fact of all the content that we've created, all the connections that we've made, all the people on our email list, maybe the money that we've made. But sometimes we lose track of that. And we're always kind of constantly looking for the next goal, the next big thing. I want to be over here. I want to be over there. I want to have this number of followers. I want to have this number of subscribers. Instead of actually just stopping for a moment and celebrating the success that we have. And by actually celebrating the success that we have, we'll realize that, something, okay, I mightn't be on as far as I thought I was going to be, but I'm making progress. I'm going in the right direction. And again, sometimes reframing and realizing that we are making progress kind of makes us maybe dial back and realize, well, something, I don't need to do as much work as I thought I need to do because I am moving in the right direction. It may be slow, but I'm finally getting there. So have a look at those things. If you are thinking right now that, you're beginning to hate your business, you're maybe frustrated, you're getting cranky, and you're just a pain in the butt to be around, that could be a sign that maybe you're heading towards burnout. But with a little reframing, with a little bit of me time, with a little bit of setting up boundaries, and realizing that you're going to be in this for the long haul, that it's not going to be a short sprint, well, then that maybe make you realize that, something, you need to dial it back. And that we really will probably need you in the future rather than you burning yourself out for the next months and never being here again. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. If you did, if you have any comments or any thoughts, please leave it below this video. And if you would like to go to the show notes of this podcast episode, I want to let you know that we are actually creating a wonderful Passion to Profits book series, which is based on these podcast episodes. So hopefully maybe by the time you click on the link and go over to the Amazon Kindle store, you will find the great book we'll put together on burnout. So as always, have a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.